I've always had a fear of drowning in the Trinity River, which that's where we live along the Trinity River. And I've often thought, how would I get out of my car if we went into the river? How would I get out? And I was thinking of this poor man, and he couldn't get out. My name's Hiedi Johnston, and I put fear on hold when I saved Eric Floyd from drowning in the bay at Eureka, California.
Hiedi Johnston is a mother of 3 from Willow Creek in Northern California, a picturesque town nestled along the Trinity River, where the biggest news is usually about the legend of Bigfoot. After all, Willow Creek is known as the Bigfoot capital of the world. Other than that, everything else in Willow Creek is pretty small. So when residents like Hiedi need more than just groceries, they head to the city of Eureka on the coast. On this occasion, Hiedi needed to go to the pharmacy. Her 2 daughters, Tess and Shay, and son-in-law Patrick joined her for the ride.
I've lived pretty much in the same town for 50 years. I've moved away a couple times, but we always seem to come back home. My brother and I grew up right along the Trinity River. It can get really big in the winter. My mom, she just wanted us to be able to save ourselves if we needed to do so. We weren't allowed to go to the river by ourselves. We have a grocery store here and a post office and a few other, pizza parlor and a few restaurants, but we do most of our shopping on the coast. And that's how I ended up on the coast that day. It's like 45 minutes to get to Arcata. And then you have to drive south from Arcata to get to Eureka. That day, my son-in-law happened to be here and my daughter, and we needed to do some grocery shopping, and we needed to go to pick up a prescription at the pharmacy in town.
That was January 2nd, 2021. It was a trip she had made hundreds of times in her life. But this one would put the life of another man in her hands.
We got ready to go. We jumped in the truck, and it happened to be a little icky that day. Like the weather was cold and it kind of sprinkled a little bit. So we went in, we went to a couple grocery stores, and then we were going to head back to the pharmacy, and it was closed. Then we decided we were just going to hit a drive-through and go home. My daughter said, well, can we go to look at the bay? And I said, yeah, we could go look at the bay. I know a spot. We drove down there, and we were there it's not even 5 minutes. I took one bite of my hamburger, just one. And all of a sudden we heard this engine just whining. I mean, it sounded like this car was going so fast. And I was like, who in their right mind would be going this fast with all these people around? Because there were quite a few people around for it being kind of an overcast, icky day. And so we turn around and I locate the truck. But by the time I figured out where the noise was coming from, the truck was already launched up in the air. And I don't know how it launched like that. Later on, I found there was a light post there. So I think when he hit the light post, it launched him up into the air. And then it just came down nose first. And the water just exploded off of the front end of the pickup truck.
The driver of the truck that went airborne and landed in the waters of Humboldt Bay was a 78-year-old man named Eric Floyd. Mr. Floyd had suffered a medical emergency and lost control of his vehicle, causing it to accelerate at a high speed in a crowded parking area.
I jumped out. Tess and I went to the front. We started looking for a rock, anything, because the truck was just floating and people were yelling at him to get out. And he was making no effort whatsoever to open a door. I never saw him move. He was looking straight ahead out the windshield of the truck. And I just knew he wasn't going to be able to get out of that truck. I thought, this can't be happening. I can't let him drown like that. I was thinking of this poor man, and he couldn't get out. He was just stunned or something was wrong. I didn't know exactly what, but he was just looking straight ahead out the windshield. And so I looked for a rock. I couldn't find a rock. So I just decided I was just going to go in and try and help him. So I just decided to go. And my family didn't even know I was going. I guess they said they just looked out and I was gone. I was already in the water and gone. So I just started swimming, and we were parked further down from where the truck went in. But I could tell by the way the truck was going, if I just swam up a little bit, I would need it. I just swam until I got out there, and it took a while, but it probably didn't take that long, but to me it felt like a little bit. And when I finally got out there, he still was looking out the window, just straight out the window. And the motor compartment of the truck, the front end of the truck, was filling full of water. I hung onto the doorknob, or hung onto the side of the truck, and I was treading water and hanging on, and I was talking to him, and I asked him if he was ready to get out, and I tried to open the door, and it was locked. But I don't think it would have opened even if it wasn't locked, because there was so much pressure on it. And I was thinking, how am I going to get him out of this truck? I can't get the window down. I can't open the door. This is really bad.
The water temperature of Humboldt Bay at that time of year was 51 degrees, cold enough to take your breath away and make swimming very difficult. Without hesitation, Hiedi jumped into the deep, chilly waters and swam toward the truck that was quickly sinking. The man inside was dazed. She thought of the lesson her mother taught her growing up along the Trinity River.
I was raised around the river. I respect it. I try never to be afraid of it. Just go with it. If you get hooked on something, stay calm and go with it.
Her calmness made all the difference that day.
So I just talked to him some more and asked him if he was ready. And if he was ready, let's get the window down. Let's try and get this door open. And nothing. The only time I ever saw him move, his head just turned slightly at me. And he smiled. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't upset. It was like, this isn't what I had planned for today. Don't know how we're going to fix it. That kind of smile. And then he turned his head back around. And not long after that, the window just came down. But then I thought, how am I getting him out that window? It's still floating. We'll just wait. We'll wait. The police will be here. So we'll just wait. But I think the pressure changed when the window went down. Something terribly went wrong at that point, because the water was already around his feet a little bit and up by his knees. But when the window opened up, there was this noise at the dash of his pickup. And it just made this whoop, whoop, whoop sound, like this bubbly, weird sound. And then all of a sudden the water just started rushing up by his legs. And then I knew, I can't wait. And he made no effort to move. He just sat there, and he had his seatbelt on. And I thought, first thing, I got to get him out of the seatbelt. His hand was curled up right next to his seatbelt, like maybe he had tried to, or he wanted to get it unbuttoned, but he couldn't. So his hand was turned up next to it. And so I pushed myself up so I could get halfway in to unhook his seatbelt. And probably that made it even fill up faster, full of water. So I was able to get him unbuckled. I grabbed a hold of him by his collar of his vest, and I just pulled as hard as I could, and I twisted his body a little bit. And I'm sure the water helped me, because the water was coming in at that point, and he just popped out the window.
Shortly after, 49-year-old Hiedi Johnston calmly popped Eric Floyd out of the window, the truck submerged completely. They were 50 feet from the nearest shore, in water that was 12 feet deep. She kept a strong hold on him, afraid that the force of the sinking vehicle would pull her under. Then her foot hit something.
we were a little ways out. And so I was thinking, I don't know if I'm even a good enough swimmer to get him back. The truck sank. I mean, it was already sinking when I got him out and it was gone. So I grabbed him by his vest and his neck and I just started treading water. And while I was treading water, I kicked the truck. So I knew it was there. I could feel the hood of the pickup with my shoe. But every time I tried to stand up, I couldn't. I kept slipping off of it. I felt where the hood of the pickup meets the windshield of the pickup. So I tried to put my foot in there. And then when I was able to do that with my free hand, I felt the top of the cab of the pickup and it had a little antenna. And I was able to hold on to that little antenna with one hand. And his vest, I think, helped keep him up. And he didn't panic. He didn't move. I never felt him move, not one time. And so once I could cram my foot in there, I felt a lot better about this situation because I was like, okay, we're going to be fine now.
Everything wasn't fine. She was still in waters deep enough to drown them both. Finally, some help arrived when a bystander swam out to them. Minutes later, a decommissioned Coast Guard boat approached. It was owned by a man named Patty Mayo, a YouTube celebrity famous for his bounty hunter series.
That's when another man showed up. So far, nobody knows who he is. My guess, he was a tourist and just there that day to look at the bay. So he swam out and he helped keep Eric afloat and in place. And while we were out there, a boat started coming towards us. And I thought it was a Coast Guard boat because it was orange and it looked like a Coast Guard boat. He just maneuvered that boat so perfectly. He stops, he throws out a rope. So I grabbed onto it and pulled Eric with me. And the other guy was there and he was pushing up on Eric. So I don't even know how the other guy was doing it because I don't know what he was holding on to, if he was holding on to anything. I have a feeling he was just treading water there. And so Patty reached down and he pulled complete dead weight out of the water, just pulled him up.
The Eureka Police Department presented Hiedi and Patty Mayo with Medals of Bravery at a February 28, 2021 presentation, which was posted on Facebook. At the ceremony, Patty Mayo described the scene, heard here portrayed by an actor.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. It's an absolute honor to have stood next to you, Hiedi, in this rescue operation. And I think the one thing that was never mentioned is Hiedi originally got my attention to the matter. I didn't have my contact lenses in, I couldn't see, but Hiedi screamed that something was going on and she wanted to get people's attention. There were probably a dozen people that witnessed the accident, but Hiedi was the first one in the water and the first one to take action. I think we all know that that water is not forgiving and it's not warm. And people are very, very heavy when they're soaked. And when I brought my boat up to Hiedi and she pulled the boat in next to her and held us there while we got the gentleman on board, it took all of my strength to get a wet gentleman onto my boat. And he was almost level to the top of his car. So what Hiedi did was nothing short of a miracle. Nothing short of just absolutely amazing. So Hiedi, congratulations, because you are one person that we need in this world. We need people like you. And it was an honor to have saved that man's life with you.
All three safely made it into the rescue boat, and Patty Mayo guided it back to shore. Hiedi could finally catch her breath, and she also caught sight of her biggest fans.
But anyway, Eric's in the boat. The older gentleman's in the boat with us. I'm in the boat. Patty's in the boat. And he's getting ready to take off. And I remember turning around and I see my girls and I just waved to them and they waved back. And then I thought, wow. And so Eric still not doing anything, poor guy. But he's in the boat and he's just looking. His eyes are open. And I noticed his hands were bloody. Patty got the boat back to the dock. And by that time, ambulance people were there. And then I saw Eric, they had him all loaded up and he was in a little gurney and he was going by and his eyes were still open. And he looked at me and I think I said, "Take care of yourself, mister," or something like that. And I smiled at him and off he went.
Eric Floyd was taken to a local hospital for treatment, where he recovered from his injuries. After he was released from the hospital, Eric and his family got to meet the woman who saved his life, otherwise known as the Lady in Pink.
Later on, I did get to meet him, and I met him and his daughter and his son and his grandson and the daughter's boyfriend. And he gave me a big old hug. And his daughter said, he doesn't remember anything, but he remembers you. He doesn't know what happened, or he just said that there was this lady in the water with this big old smile on her face, and that was it. I was wearing a pink sweatshirt when I went in the water that day. So when they were trying to find me to interview me, nobody knew who I was. And so when they were trying to find me, they called me the Lady in Pink.
The story of Heidi's bravery reached far and wide. She was recognized locally by the Eureka Police Department and the Humboldt Bay Fire Department for her heroism. It also landed her a guest appearance on the nationally syndicated Tamron Hall show in New York City. The show was bittersweet in many ways. It's where Heidi learned the sad news of Eric Floyd, but also of the joy she gave his family.
On the show, I found out that he had passed away, and I was really sad. I thought, golly sakes, he almost dies. I thought, why? And I know things happen for a reason, but I was so sad. And his other daughter came on and talked, and not everybody got to see it, but she said that it was really a time for healing for their family, and they got to heal their hurts and make peace with one another, and that they were so grateful for that. And so I just felt so much better. You probably can't tell with me crying, but I thought there really was a purpose, even though I would have loved to know that he was still alive, but maybe he just needed that little more extra time on Earth. And maybe it needed to happen in the way it did, because if it hadn't happened that way, maybe they wouldn't have realized that life is short. We only have so much time.
Heidi gave Eric that precious little bit of time he needed to find healing with his family. She often thinks about that when looking back on that day. Perhaps that is why she just happened to be in a parking lot at the exact moment a truck catapulted into the bay.
What if the pharmacy was open? What if my daughter hadn't asked to go to the bay? Because I probably wouldn't even have thought to do it. I probably would have sat in the parking lot and waited had nobody been in the car with me that day.
Heidi changed a man's life by saving it that day. But it also changed her life in a big way. It made her think about how and why we are all put here on this earth. With more people like Heidi in it, the world would be a better place.
Going to New York probably was just the best blessing for me, because I was so sad that he had passed away. And then just to know that their family is much better off now. Sometimes you get stuck in your own little world and you just see the negative about things sometimes, and just seemed like everybody was unhappy, So it was so nice to see that people still love each other, no matter what we're being told or how divided we are. I don't think that's true. I think, we might be divided, but what it proved to me personally is that we are still one. We are one, and we are people, and people love one another. People are good to one another, and we need to look good a little bit more and to be grateful for the good. Then not only that, but cause a stir, I could cause a stir in somebody's life. I could make them happier in the day, Why can't you say hello to somebody in the store? Why can't you, a stranger? Why can't you compliment somebody? And I'm not talking about insincere compliments because those don't work. But, if you see somebody and they're doing a good job cleaning and you're eating in their establishment, why can't you say, hey, I noticed you're doing such a good job. I'm so thankful for that. Or, I noticed your big old smile and it's so wonderful to see. It just makes me so happy. Why don't we do that more often?
For her courage and bravery, Hiedi was awarded a Carnegie Medal by the Carnegie Hero Fund. Fittingly, she was nominated by the daughter of Eric Floyd, the man she saved. Hiedi put fear on hold that day, and when asked if she would do it again, here's what she had to say.
I felt absolutely no fear, not whatsoever. I never was afraid. I never thought, I could drown. I guess it was just supposed to be me that day. I have no doubt in my mind I would do the same thing over again in a heartbeat.
Thank you for listening to Fear on Hold. My name is Eric Zarin, and I'm president and chair of Andrew Carnegie's Hero Fund, the 100-year-old foundation that awards the Carnegie Medal, North America's highest civilian award for heroism. As president, I get to see the nominations of heroic acts that come in from across the United States and Canada. I'm constantly amazed at the extraordinary risk people willingly take on to save others, who are often strangers. Since 1904, we've awarded the Carnegie Medal to more than 10,000 people. This podcast is just a small sample of their incredible stories. Visit us at carnegiehero.org.
Subscribe to hear other stories where heroes put their fear on hold, including Pete DePinto of Brookhaven, New York, who was home in bed with his wife when he heard a distinct noise, very different from the typical diesel train sounds he was used to.
So now I can start to see the lights of the train approaching us. And I knew basically we're going to get her out or we're going to die together, because there was just no way I was going to leave her.
These heroic stories are based on investigative reports made by the Carnegie Hero Fund Commission and the personal memories of medal recipients and witnesses. Fear on Hold was produced by Big Science Pods, Bill Garrison, and the Carnegie Hero Fund Commission. Funding was provided by the Carnegie Hero Fund. Original music by Big Science Music. Thank you to all of the heroes and witnesses who participated in this podcast. And a special thanks to all heroes everywhere, past, present, and future.